Hey, my name is Erica Anderson. I'm a freelance writer and I've published two nonfiction books, traditionally published two nonfiction books. I just finished launching my second one. And I wanted to tell you today about what I've learned in that process. Because when you walk into a book launch, especially the first time, you really don't know what to expect. And to be honest with you, I don't feel like the book marketing teams, no matter how great they are, they do not prepare you for everything that you need to know. So I'm filling you in on all the details today of what I have learned, because the first time around, it did not go great for me. And so I was well prepared the second time to go for it in a way that I just wasn't prepared for the first time. So here are 6 things I learned with my second traditional book launch. So number one is build that email list. So I really started my second book with an email list of only about 800 people. But what I learned is that email lists convert at like a 15% rate, meaning that if whatever number of people you have on your email list, 15% of those are likely to actually buy your book. So the bigger your email list, the better you're going to have available to you in sales directly from people that you know and that are honed into who you are. So I really focus on building my email list starting a couple of years before the book even came out. I sort of knew where I was going with it and started building my list of people that I knew were going to be the kind of people that would want my book. I accomplished this primarily through using Facebook ads to a lead magnet that was something that related to my book. And then I also did a couple of collaborations, book giveaways, and really just started focusing on adding my lead anywhere and anytime I did anything. So, and not only was I building the list, I was nurturing it by sending out consistent emails once a week and making sure I was providing valuable content for people that related back to the book so that when the book came out, they would be ready for that. Number 2, I really thought way long term. So when I say this, I just mean that I really thought of the book as a much bigger project than just a book. I thought of it as this is not one and done. This is an evergreen thing. I'm just starting this process now, even as the book came out a couple of months ago. I didn't look at it as, okay, launch is over, so let's move on to the next thing. I look at the book as an evergreen product that I'm going to be selling for a long time. I highly recommend reading the book Perennial Seller by Ryan Holiday. That was really powerful for me in how I approached this second book. With the first book, I had kind of just given up, not realizing that like, hey, actually this is also an evergreen. And so it's actually inspired me to start kind of reselling my first book as I'm working on all kinds of long-term tactics, including funnels, to sell book 2. All right, number 3, relationships are so important. We know we've all heard it. It's not what you know, it's who you know, and that kind of a thing. Now that's not 100% true when it comes to this, but I will say that networking was a key part of how I approached this. So I have a podcast, and that gave me the ability to invite on pretty much anyone I wanted. And so I was very strategic about who I invited on the podcast and made sure they were people that would connect with this material related to my book and would be someone that I might be able to go back later and say, hey, my book is out. Would you mind sharing it with your audience? So, in general, I love just having these conversations, but it just worked out so great that so many of the people that I already wanted to talk to were people that would care about the subject matter of my book. And so I was very intentional about regularly reaching out to them and maintaining those online relationships and connecting with people that I knew would be beneficial for when the book came out. Number 4 is marketing is on me. I know that having a traditional book deal, you have a huge advantage in that, you're getting an editor, you're getting your cover, you're getting all those things. And you have a PR and marketing team, and that's helpful for sure. Like, they definitely got me some stuff that I wouldn't have gotten on my own. However, I think unless you are, super famous, and even if you are, you need to come into your book publishing situation as kind of thinking of it as all on you. Like, no one cares about your book like you care about your book. And so you need to go all out in terms of researching, networking, and getting on people's shows. I did a lot of work on my own, asking, can I do a guest excerpt? Can you do a review? And telling people like, hey, I want to be on your podcast. Honestly, there's an endless amount of things that you could be doing, so you can't do it all. But I would say start a spreadsheet, start tracking what you want to be on, what you want to do, and really just look at it as your own sort of baby. Yes, the publishers are going to help, but honestly, they just don't care about it like you do. And I did never feel either time like it was like the most important thing to them. So it is the most important thing to you. So take the marketing into your own hands, learn, grow. I started following Instagram accounts and experts at book marketing to kind of grow, and I'm still learning that kind of stuff. So do that, because there are a lot of resources out there. I would, one thing I would recommend, follow my friend's podcast. It's called Hungry Authors. That's a good place to start to hear a little bit more about this. Okay, number 5 thing that I learned, use all the content. So the great thing about having a book is that you have so much content that you can use for marketing and social media. You do not have to reinvent the wheel when it comes to copy for some of this stuff. So one of the most helpful things that someone told me when I was in the beginning of this process is lists. People love lists. They can consume them. They are just these little chunks of things that you can put out there. So what are the things that you can make lists of in your book? And so I would find, what are the top quotes? What are the stories? What are the Bible verses? What are the, various things that I covered related to the issue? And if you can make lists and sort of help your book become this digestible concept for people, they might be more likely to buy it. Even sharing my chapter titles before the book came out seemed to be really helpful. People seemed to really appreciate that. They got a sense of like, what is this book? And it was like a much more tangible thing to them than just like, okay, this is a book. Like when they see the chapters, when they see some of the content, I think that makes a really big difference. So I would say use all the content, use the quotes, use all that hard work that you have put into it. Number 6 is you've got to be patient. So here I am a couple months out from my second book launch, and it's like, how do you know? How do you know if you have been successful? And what I have also learned in the world of book publishing is sometimes it's hard to tell. Numbers are very mysterious. Your book is being sold from places like Barnes & Noble and Amazon and christianbook.com and Books A Million and thriftbooks.com. I mean, you will never really get like a solid clear picture of how many books you've sold. Now what I do is I check Amazon rankings. So I will go to Amazon and I can see in sort of the, like my book is Christian women's, so I can see each day like, oh, has it gone down the charts or up the charts? And that's how I can kind of tell, is it selling? Is it still selling? So that's the one way I have found, but even your publishers are not going to be able to tell you a whole lot, maybe even for a long time. So you just kind of have to do your due diligence, do your best, and just recognize again that this is a long-term project. You are not going to become a bestseller right away. In the book Perennial Seller, Ryan Holiday talks about some of the best-selling books of all time actually didn't become bestsellers until like a year or two after they were published, because it really is a long-term thing. And the most powerful marketing that you have is word of mouth. So you have to give it time for people to be able to read it. I mean, as much as we want everyone to immediately read our book the moment that it comes out, most people don't have time to do that. And so it's going to take time to filter through the system. So that is the 6th thing that I learned. And in conclusion, the traditional book launch is just the beginning. I knew that this book and my first were so important to me that I was going to write them whether or not I got a book deal. And I think when it comes to books, at least for creatives at heart and passionate people like myself, you really have to know that this is a mission for you. It doesn't matter what you get paid, which by the way probably won't be a whole lot, and it doesn't matter if you get a traditional publisher. If this is a message that is on your heart or that God is calling you to, as he was for me, this is going to be something that you're going to write anyway. And thankfully there are a lot of a lot of opportunities to self-publish these days that are really good. So please don't be discouraged. Traditional book deals are not everything. I know several people that have sold their self-published books very well using their own marketing, which you're going to be doing anyway, right? For a traditionally published book. And I think as writers, I will just say this in closing, we're always moving on to the next. We become better writers by writing. And so as we're waiting for the next phase in the book or whatever it is, we can't just wait around and wait for results. We have to move on. We have to continue writing and move on to the next idea and come back and focus on the book as well. We're going to still sell it, but we can't dwell on it. it. We're not going to dwell on it. That's not what we do as writers. And so, those are 6 things I learned in my second traditional book launch. I am an expert at nonfiction book proposals. So if you have a nonfiction book on your heart, I would love to help you get that together. A book proposal, if you don't know, is really essential in laying out your book, even whether or not you're going to traditionally publish or self-publish. It really helps you lay the framework and get an outline of what you actually want to write about so that you do actually finish that book. Less than 1% of people in the world actually write and publish a book. So it does take some foresight. It does take some actual intention and strategy. And I have written 2 successful book proposals that were I had like 6 different publishing companies interested in my work as I did this. And so I would love to help you craft a nonfiction book proposal that sells. If that's something you're interested in, you can check the comment and description down below to see how to get in touch with me. I also am an expert in freelance writing, publishing and pitching articles. So if you're interested in getting your name out there with freelance writing, getting published in places like the New York Times, the Washington Post, magazines that you read, that's something that I work with students on in my Bragworthy Bylines course. And I'm going to drop the information for that below. If nothing else, I'd love to have you on my email list where I send out weekly tips and tricks for creative and freelance writers. And you can grab that at the link below as well. Check out my stuff at pitchandpublish.co. I will see you next time.